Welcome to the Construction Leadership Game Show, where we get leaders from different segments of the construction industry to compete, to share ideas and insights. We are here live from Louisville, Kentucky at the Palmer-Donavin 2023 Winter Show. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Bradley.
All right, so we're going to start with Matt Butzier. We're going to go to Mr. Don Dyson and finish with Mark McNabb with a couple questions to get our audience oriented to you. Matt, I want to know your hometown, your first job, let's say where you were paying taxes, okay? And a brief description. Let's keep it brief. I know the CertainTeed guy could go on for 4 hours about all the things that they do. A brief description of what your company does.
Okay, I'm Matt Butzier. My hometown is Marion, Ohio. My first job was the coolest job in the world. I sold shoes at the finish line in the mall. Palmer-Donavin is a distributor for building materials as well as a door fabricator.
All right, fantastic. As you can see, we have a point system here. Would you guys be interested in learning how points are awarded?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I bet you would. You picked up 2 points for the finish line. It's fantastic. Don Dyson, hometown, first job where you're paying taxes, and a brief description of contract lumber.
Okay, Don Dyson, from Dublin, Ohio. And my first job was painting houses, which I didn't pay taxes on. Hope the IRS is not watching this.
No, they're not watching.
Real first job was selling audio equipment at Sun TV in Columbus, Ohio. Contract Lumber is a lumber dealer headquartered out of Columbus, Ohio, but we have locations scattered throughout the South. We do both labor and material packages for single family and multifamily builders.
Wonderful. Mr. Mark McNabb, welcome to the show. I want to know hometown, first job paying taxes, and brief description of CertainTeed and Syncopaint.
I grew up in Newark, Ohio. I spent most of my life there, and my first job was at an Anheuser-Busch distributor where I was the warehouse worker lugging beer and wine around all day. Served me well later in life. I now work for CertainTeed. CertainTeed is a building material supplier of both interior and exterior building products, and I am the siding representative for CertainTeed, selling vinyl siding, stone, vinyl railing, many plastic products within the organization that also has roofing and drywall and insulation and other products that CertainTeed manufactures.
Fantastic. Couple bonus points. So you were working under the age of 21, lugging around beer and wine.
Yes, I was. Yeah, that's great.
I can see that.
I did make
that
the
would benefit
grandfather
you in your
clause.
future life, yeah. All right. So we're going to jump in, Matt. I'm going to start with you here. So here's the situation. Somebody comes to you and says, hey, we have someone young, talented, passionate, mid-20s, but they need to improve their leadership capabilities. You are responsible for working directly with them. I want to know, what's the first leadership behavior you're going to focus on for this individual?
I think I'd start with servant leadership. Talk about being humble and how they're really there to help other people to achieve what their career goals are. So that's where I'd start.
Servant leadership, I love that, Matt. Let me ask a follow-up question on that. Where in your leadership journey did that concept of the servant leader, where did that come for you first?
Well, you know, it's throughout our organization. It would have been my predecessors really lived that philosophy, you know, and I really saw how important that was to help others to achieve their goals. So it kind of permeates throughout our entire organization.
Yeah, I feel lucky. We have a client of ours who brought up this idea of servant leadership. And then I think his name was Robert Greenleaf, but it was someone who had written some material, and then it was easily passed up upon in a book form that was really helpful for me to understanding this idea of servant leadership. What does that cover? What does it include? So, but I can imagine having someone model that consistently would be the most efficient way.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
Do I get points for that?
No, you do not. It was good stuff, though. Mark McNabb. What? Good question. Mark McNabb. Somebody comes to you, mid-20s, develop the leadership skills. What's the behavior that you start with first?
I say to any new sales rep that any leader, that they need to be available. They need to answer their phone. They need to return emails. Let the people know that they came to you and that you're going to respond and be there for them. I think that often gets overlooked, that there's a reason they call you. There's a reason they ask for your help, and you need to be that person that responds quickly, not getting back to them in a delayed manner. You got to hurry up, get onto it. And I am kind of lazy. I hate calling people back. So I always try to answer the call first so I don't have to track somebody down. So it works well for me. And ultimately, I think that leads to the other things, that people feel that you are there for them and responsible and helping them grow their business. And ultimately, as a young rep, I would just tell them to do what you promise. If you ask you to do something, make sure that you follow through. And those traits will carry you through life a very positive way in most every aspect, whether it's business or personal life or anything.
So let me ask you, it sounds like that is going to be closely related to general time management. Is that fair to say?
Without question, yeah.
What's the most efficient way you've been able to teach someone young about a time management system? What we often see in our industry in general in construction is kind of the old, find something that works for you. And it's on the back of a 2x4 or drywall, or writing on their hands, or maybe just only using Outlook. Some people really struggle with that. How intentional are you with saying, here's a system, use this. If you outgrow it, you can deviate. But I think sometimes folks really need something specific. Do you get into that detail with this leader potentially?
Well, the company is pushing Salesforce on us. I've used Outlook for years.
Okay.
I personally make notes by sending emails to myself and not deleting an email until the task is completed. So it's a little lazy instead of putting it in a day timer that I may have done originally in my career.
Sure.
However, it's working well at this point. But the biggest time management thing I feel is important is planning, that often gets ignored in all levels of business, personal. If you don't set a plan, if you don't say, hey, I want to be ready to do something, you're going to miss things, and that happens all the time.
Got it. Don, same question. Young leader, what behavior to start with?
In my opinion, maybe the most important thing is be humble. Well, there's a lot of different qualities and traits that are important. Integrity, compassion, good communicator. People follow those they respect. And to earn their respect, I think it's important for a person who is humble is going to be a team player. They're more about team goals and not somebody who positions themselves as a superior to those around them. So if you want to be an effective leader, start with being humble.
Got it. Matt, you mentioned humility or the word humble in your response as well. Is that something you can teach?
I think you can try to set the example and kind of share with what that is supposed to look like. So yeah, I think folks can model that behavior. So,
yep.
Which, by the way, not just because he's my customer, excellent answer.
Incredible. Such a model for the world. Yeah, I can imagine. All right.
Bonus points?
What's it? For Matt, yes.
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah.
He's a salesman at heart, All right, so let's transition to this. Don, I'm gonna start with you here. If you think about the role of leadership, and picture your role as a leader, what do you believe is the highest compliment you could be paid? And maybe this is something that you've heard from folks. You said, that's why I wake up in the morning. That's why I exist, to hear things like that. Or maybe it's more aspirational. What's a compliment you would like to hear about your leadership?
You made us better. So, in my estimation, to be a leader, the sole responsibility is to make those around you better. Better employees, better teammates, better people. So, if you concentrate on the people in general and the team goals, I think you'll be a great leader and enjoy the compliments that are handed out.
Yep. Got it. Mark, same question. What's a compliment you either have received in the past that you said, that's it, that's why I do what I do, or one that you think would be the pinnacle of the type of compliment you could receive about your own leadership? What would that be?
You make it look easy. It's not always easy, but if you make it look easy, that means you've done the preparation. You've done everything behind the scenes that when the time comes, you're prepared, you're ready, and you're not uncomfortable in the moment. And when it's easy, then you've done everything that you should have done to get ready, to set the example. I hope that's a compliment that I receive.
Got it. How hard is that to do in terms of kind of that preparation? Like, in theory, say, and I'm sure this happens, right? You have someone new and you got to mentor them, you got to give them some guidance. What are some preparatory activities that you do to make sure you are giving them the best, that you can put yourself in a position to have them say, well, man, you made it look easy, and then that gave me confidence, and now I'm, knock on wood, they're coachable if they follow what you do and they can find it easy. That I can imagine be fantastic.
Being a sales rep, I feel it's critical that you have your product knowledge down. That's, no questions. And unfortunately, that comes with time, many years of exercises daily, doing things. So you're not necessarily going to pick it up overnight. However, when it is something you're comfortable with, that helps. But it's all about preparation. If you've got a presentation to do, you got to prepare for it. You got to make sure you're ready. And oftentimes you just don't wing it. And I think that happens many times, not having a reason for a sales call or other activities that you're involved with. If you're not prepared, then it ain't going to go very easy. So.
Well said. Matt, how about you? Compliment on your leadership that you either would like to hear more of or you strive to hear from the organization that you lead.
I think if somebody was to say, he really listened, he really cares about me and would go out of his way to help me to achieve my goals, I think that's probably the biggest compliment I can get. Yeah.
Is it possible for people to be effective leaders if they are poor listeners?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think you've got to be really intent on listening to really hear them out, not listening to speak, but listening to understand. So I would say no.
Yeah, Don, same question. When it comes to listening, can you be an effective leader if you're not a great listener? Because I don't know about you, my career in the construction industry has provided ample opportunity to meet people that I just don't think are great listeners, or they're not interested in being listeners. Is it possible to overcome that if you realize, I'm probably not the best listener?
Well, I think the traditional salesman concept is you have to talk to be successful. And I think it's really the exact opposite. If you want to be a successful salesperson or a successful leader, then you have to be a good listener. And I think you just need to make a conscious decision to sit back and try to understand what this other person is saying. So, yes, I think it's possible to improve your listening skills simply by I want to.
Yeah.
Make a conscious decision.
Mark, how much of leadership is ultimately about selling? Selling an idea, selling a path forward, selling a vision of where we can go together, selling the idea that, it's safe to screw up here, like all the different elements that are included in there. How much of that leadership is selling?
In my role, selling is about 10% of my job. It's the management part that is the challenge. And ultimately, there's so many things that expected from a representative, whether it's at any level, that you have to do more than just sell. We don't get to sit in front of people and make a presentation nonstop all day. That's not the way it works. However, for me, that's the easiest part of my job. The hard part's the paperwork and the, getting the tasks completed that ultimately drive you nuts, the stuff that you don't want to do. And that is where I try to be a leader. I try to set a good example and being complete with my tasks, but ultimately we all get caught up and we have things that we have to do. We need to catch up, but showing leadership is catching up before you have to be asked to do something twice.
Yeah. You bring up the word management, Don, that has me thinking, if you look at all your time and how to be intentional where you spend your time, how do you decide what activities are geared more towards management, which is making sure the right things are happening, versus leadership, which is, hey, I'm helping grow my team and helping other people be successful? Obviously, management and leadership are both critically important. You're not going to be successful, running a business if you're not doing them both. But how do you navigate where to invest your time? And are those percentages, is that allocation? Is that in the best use of the company and your goals?
That's a great question. And it's a constant challenge to discern where you do spend your time. It's working in multiple markets. Everyone's unique, so you have to do the groundwork to understand those markets and spend time and energy in going in with knowledge as the base. So I think that that from a leadership standpoint, you have to designate the time in both categories, both management and activities. For me, I do a lot of events, which take a lot of planning, and that's critical that I do the research up front, understand what our goals are going in to be successful with any given event, both whether it be internal or a customer-related event.
Yeah. Matt, I'm curious about you. If you were to look back at, maybe it's a month, maybe it's a quarter, are there any sort of indicators for you that you can look back and say, okay, that is where I invested my time, and that was absolutely more of a leadership activity than management? Maybe that's internal with your team, maybe it's external with customers or vendors, other partners. Are there any sort of indicators to you that reinforce I'm allocating my time in general more towards a leadership versus a pure management activity?
I don't know that there's clear-cut indicators necessarily. I think it's a really difficult thing to do, where to draw that line, but I've always believed that you put the right people in the positions, and then you help them by removing obstacles, and then you get the heck out of their way and let them do what they're good at. And so I think if the focus for me is that I can help them to do their jobs without getting too far into the weeds, I think that's where my time needs to be best spent. So.
Yeah, that's well said. By the way, Don, if you didn't notice, if you tell me that I asked an excellent question, you get additional points. So just want to kind of note that for our audience here. So we're here in Louisville. We are, if there was more sun, we would quite literally be in the shadow of Muhammad Ali. His museum is right behind us there. Here's a question. There is a correct answer. We are looking for one number from each of you. Here's the question. How many wins as a heavyweight did Muhammad Ali achieve in his career? Mark, go.
Professional career?
Mark, I'm just looking for a number. I'm not giving you more details. Yes, professional heavyweight career. Good question. Can I deduct points?
Yeah.
No, you're fine. Yes.
I'm going to go with 44.
44 says Mark. Over to Matt.
35.
35. Don.
29.
29. Correct answer is 56. Mark McNabb, you were closest to the answer, awarding 4 well-earned points. Good job there. All right, let's transition to our final question here. This involves cinema. Matt, I'm gonna start with you. Matt, can you name for me your favorite leadership movie of all time and substantiate your selection?
Absolutely. My favorite leadership movie, Gladiator.
Okay.
Marcus Aurelius comes to Maximus and wants him to kind of take over the throne, and he's beloved by his troops and by the people, and yet he turns it down because he doesn't think he's worthy. And then there's that moment in the movie when he says, that's why it has to be you. Yeah. I think it's really cool.
That is. I also think that ties back really neatly to what both of you had indicated about that idea of humility, right? And I think there's a great quote about people who run for presidents of the United States. That is, if you actually want to become president of the United States and you're willing to run, you are therefore disqualified for being president of the United States because of everything you have to go through for that. But let me jump back to Mark. We'll finish with Don. favorite leadership movie all time. What is it?
Well, as I think about it, I think of Tommy Boy, as I am a huge fan of Chris Farley, God rest his soul. And ultimately, his leadership style came out in Matt Foley, which was a skit on Saturday Night Live. So,
Hold on. If I can clarify for the audience here, I say what's your favorite movie. You say Tommy Boy, and you're transitioning to
Matt Foley, the motivational speaker.
Okay, you switch over to Matt Foley from Saturday Night Live. Fair enough. Continue.
So Tommy Boy is let's call him an overweight salesman. I kind of fall into that category. And I have always had a great affection for someone that can sell the way he did in that movie. So it was awesome. So he took his sales career from horrible to great. And that was something that came out in the movie.
Well, when we're doing sales training, I think just training in general, especially being in the construction industry at large, if you can have a sense of humor and be likable and people like to hang out with you, you just add in a little bit of usefulness. But there's that scene in Tommy Boy where all of a sudden David Spade's character, Richard Hayden, realizes that's how you sell. You just have it be fun, right? Enjoy what you're doing and quit applying all that pressure. I think whether you're a CEO or a project manager or a superintendent, or you're in operations or working in the back of a yard, if you can find a way to have fun with it and enjoy the people you're working with, everything else is a lot more enjoyable and you'll probably be better at your job as well. So I didn't see the Matt Foley reference coming, but that's wonderful. All right, I'll give you an extra bonus point there. Don Dyson, favorite movie, leadership movie, and why?
My favorite movie from a leadership standpoint would be Remember the Titans. Denzel Washington had the lead. He came in as a young black football coach into, I think it was 1971 in Virginia, into a newly integrated school. And he had to deal with all the biases and issues that you could imagine. And again, 1971, it's hard to believe that we were dealing with this, but he brought this team together to set aside all the personal achievement issues that young athletes have to bring them together to accomplish team goals. So it's one of my favorite movies.
Got it. I liked how you went deep in the history, gave us a little social aspect of what's happening at the time. Mark, Matt, maybe if you ever ask back to the show, maybe you guys can up your game a little bit with a little historical framing of the narrative. That's very good. Bonus point for you. All right, as we close out here, here's what I want you to imagine. I want you to imagine your colleagues, right? Your bosses, the people who report to you, the people who are in your community that you interact with. They're watching this. I want you to give what's one message, maybe one takeaway that you say based on your experience, that you've observed leadership or leadership that you try to live out every single day. What's one message and maybe one final takeaway? Matt, we'll start with you. We'll go right down the line to Don and then Mark. What's one message that you want your community of folks to understand about your perspective on leadership?
I think if we're all there and we care for one another, we want to help each other. Again, back to that humility thing, I don't think you can go wrong. So I think it's just constantly having that outlook that we want to be better and we want to help each other to get there. I mean, I think that's the key to everything. So, yep.
I love it. Don?
I think adaptability is critical. It's not one size fits all. You have to be flexible. If you're going to be a leader, you have to understand you're dealing with people and everybody's different. Everybody's motivated differently. And your job is to understand what motivates that individual and what moves them forward. And so adaptability is critical.
Love that. Mark?
I would say a leader is always being observed. He's always being watched. And you set examples by your actions. And ultimately, I believe that you need to present yourself in a way that you want the people behind you to act. So the way you act is something that if you want your people to follow you that way, you hope that you're setting a good example.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you for being part of this inaugural episode of the Construction Leadership Game Show, which surely there will be several thousand more, or not. Maybe this might be the only one. We're going to figure that out. But I appreciate you guys sharing what you've learned and the experiences that you've had. Don, you are, according to the scoreboard and my unknown point awarding system, the champion of the first episode. Round of applause. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I appreciate you guys being humble losers. But like life, there's a scoreboard. So gentlemen, I appreciate your time. I've learned a lot from listening to you and our little bit of pregame that we did. I would like to thank CertainTeed for sponsoring this episode. I'd like to thank Palmer-Donavin in putting on this 2023 winter show here live from Louisville, Kentucky. Gentlemen, thanks again.